Want to make your money work harder? Enjoy another video with Adam Kahn, the rational investor on stocks, real estate, and crypto. Subscribe now for your weekly dose of investment insights and hopefully learn a thing or two.
Hello, my YouTube friends, and happy Wednesday. So, is SMCI the deal of a century right now? I think so, and I'll get into that a bit today in today's video, and I'm also going to talk about a couple other things. I hope you're all doing well. Before I forget, let's give a shout out to my sponsor, Lily, my wife, who I think we're going to get dinner today. The past couple days, I haven't had a chance to make videos, but it's because I've been so busy at work, which is a real surprise because this time of year, typically, the mortgage industry gets pretty slow because people get distracted with the holidays. Um, but work has picked up. So despite me not having a chance to put out a video, not getting the likes and subscribes I typically would when I put those out, she was still kind enough to make dinner. But I would appreciate if you guys could hit that like button, maybe even hit that subscribe button if you haven't subscribed already, and make some comments because that really helps motivate her to feed me. And since I've said before, I really like to eat, it's nice to have my sponsor right at home so we can discuss this stuff. And I appreciate all of you guys pitching in and helping. The funny thing is, as much as I joke about that, I actually have gotten two emails recently about people offering to do sponsorships. Now, I haven't signed up with either of them. I'm really not looking for a sponsorship at this point. I suppose if the channel grew a ton and was doing exceptionally well, for sure I'd take that into consideration, but it would have to be something that I actually use or believe in or something of that nature, not something I'm just selling because fortunately, like I've said multiple times, I really do this for me and not because I'm trying to drive anything. Helps me keep disciplined and deep down, I mentioned it in one of the lives and I really stand by this. If I can reach out to a couple people and really encourage them to save for their future and help motivate them to put themselves in a better position, that would be really cool. Anything outside of that, great, but that's my hope here. I like teaching. I always talk about markets with friends or people who I meet. So again, if I can encourage somebody, that would be awesome. So Super Micro, or ticker symbol SMCI, has had a whole bunch of trouble. I don't know how many of you have been keeping up on it and wondering what's going on. Ernst & Young was their accountant who stepped down saying that they think that they're fraudulent and that there's a lot of wrongdoing in their books. And it crushed the stock. I mean, the price fell below $20 a share. I don't even know what the high is. I know it was over 100. I want to say like 120 as it precipitously continued to fall. The news was coming out about a short seller who was questioning their information. Then the news came out that Ernst & Young was actually leaving the account, and it's super rare that your accounting firm cancels with you because they think that you're falsifying documents and making up information. So of course this just clobbered the stock. They were actually in jeopardy of getting delisted and continued reaching out to the exchange to try to say that they felt like they had done nothing wrong. Well, a few days ago, the stock was up quite a bit, and the news was there was no nefarious, forgive me if I pronounce that wrong, but no real wrongdoing on the company's side. So Ernst & Young probably had it wrong, and the comment in the follow-up was they were just growing at such a fast pace that they didn't believe them. Now, I don't know if there'll be a lawsuit against Ernst & Young. As somebody who has some of the stock in their retirement account, I'm pretty frustrated with them, to be perfectly honest, and I kind of thought the whole way through, if this ends up turning out to not be accurate, they've done a lot of damage to this company. At the same time, if it's not accurate, there's no reason in my mind the stock shouldn't go right back up to where it was. And the comment of they're just growing so fast that they didn't believe the information, it gives me more credence of why I think it'll go higher. Full disclosure, I've been really upfront about the trading account. I have not put it in the trading account. I'm sticking with the 4 stocks for now. This is not one of the 2 that I'm going to add on, but I do have a position in my retirement account that I don't plan on changing anything with at this point. But how cool that they're growing that fast. Oh, gives me good opportunity for my disclosure. Please use any information that I'm sharing for entertainment purposes only. This is not financial advice. When you guys make any financial decisions, you have to do your own research, reach out to a financial advisor and not listen to me, and for that matter, anybody else on YouTube to make these choices. So, Supermicro does IT, essentially helps companies with their IT and primarily data centers where they house a bunch of things. And my understanding is they have one of the best uh, facilities and they do the best job of the options available. So if they're growing at such a fast rate, and if this gets behind them and they can continue to grow, what a great opportunity that it's so discounted right now. Because even around $40 a share, which is about where I saw it trading last, I think it gives tons of upside room, and your downside is pretty much the lows, which that's a good drop in an account, but you're risking $20 in my brain, maybe 25 to potentially make 60 or 70. That's good risk reward in terms of a high flyer type of bet. Now, those of you who are looking for something more stable and more secure, we've talked about some of those options, which is why I'll go back to the disclaimer a bit of you really need to do what works for you because we're all in different positions. And depending on what your goal for your portfolio is, you have to adjust accordingly for your own lives and not what I do. I take on some undue risk sometimes because I'm okay with the risk, and I mitigate it with some boring stuff too. I'm actually very excited to see what their next quarter's earnings are when they can actually report them and when they can get an accounting company to follow up and take Ernst and Young's place. If they're continuing to grow at the pace, I know that they'll be looking at the margins as well because it's becoming more of a competitive space. But if they're still growing rapidly and the margins aren't getting clobbered, I I think they can make new highs and continue from there. Similar to what I saw happen in CrowdStrike when they had the issue that they had. I mean, my God, I can't believe when I look at the stock how well it's performed since they had the outage and that issue. That couldn't have been but maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and they're threatening new highs if they haven't made it already. It tells me how valuable that company is. So I just want you to think about it, and it's why I don't dig into the numbers too deeply, because if I do on CrowdStrike, they look super overpriced. But some of the big funds must have some information to be continuing to buy it up to these levels and then some after they had the negative news. Why would a company be trading as to what we would think of as so overvalued? It's not like these $1 trillion or $1 billion hedge funds are just idiots and don't have any way to justify their valuations when they're buying companies. So I'd be cautious about feeling like something is overvalued or undervalued based on running numbers that we have. Don't get me wrong, I look at it all, but I would be cautious and take into account the story and what's going on to see if there's potential for something to grow at a pace where eventually those numbers make sense. Also on my banging my table on Boeing, I don't want to get overexcited, but I have been very happy to see it start threatening to get above $160 a share. Considering how far it's fallen from, I could understand if somebody's been buying it from when I first started talking about it, about not being too excited. But I really do feel like at this point, I don't hear it in the news very often. The strike is over. The planes that crashed has been long enough that I'm guessing most people in the general public aren't really thinking about it a whole lot. They just got a new contract with the government. I think a lot of the negative is behind them. And what I hope for the next 6 months to a year is they're just not in the news and the stock just starts drifting higher while nobody's paying attention. I feel like it's begun. Of course, I'm wrong a lot of the time, so please, again, don't follow me, do what works for you. But I think it's still a great opportunity, and I would like to see it grow by the end of the year and surprise people where it closes out by December, and then start January strong as well. Now, of course, that's just what I would like. That doesn't mean that necessarily happens, but I am very excited to see where it's gotten so far. Again, to repeat it, I don't want to overstate it because I know it's fallen a long way, but it does show some signs of life, and I hope that continues. Now, I don't know if you saw the interview with Andrew Ross Sorkin and Jerome Powell, but it was awesome. I couldn't have thought of anything better. Essentially, from what he was saying, what I read into it, and these are not his words, these are my words, but the economy is doing incredible. But we still have rates that are restrictive in terms of what the Fed funds are against where inflation really is. So he still sees a need. A need's probably not the right word, but the ability to continue to ease off on rates and continue to cut, but to be cautious to make sure that inflation doesn't start spiking up and get out of control. My guess, and this is just my best guess, and this is kind of what I envision, they'll cut on the meeting that's coming up, but I don't know what they'll start doing next year, but the direction will still be cutting. And what I'm thinking they'll do is when it evens out and makes status quo for where they consider inflation using the CPI versus where the Fed funds are, that's where they'd stop completely. And right now, that's running in the high twos, low threes, which means potentially we have another 100 basis cuts of cuts coming over the next year. Now, I'm not on the Fed, I don't sit on the committee. One of the things I found really interesting in the conversation that I don't know that I really understood. He talked about how the Fed actually is investing and they're generally outperforming the amount of money that they're using. And then they give that money back to the government for them to use however they use. So it's really interesting. I always knew this when I was a trader and people used to talk about it, which is the governments actually trade. They are looking to profit on the positions they put on. They're not just randomly buying and selling things to keep the economy afloat. They're actually making targeted investments. Now, that doesn't mean they're going and buying Apple, they're not buying equities, but they are trading currencies and they are trading the treasury, like the bonds, and they are trading other products to try to end up netting a profit. So I always try to be aware to any trade that the Fed is putting on and kind of overthink about why they've put it on and potentially follow along. I think the same is with crypto. Part of why I like it so much is the government said that when the Trump administration comes on, they're going to create this entity to monitor crypto, particularly Bitcoin. They already have 200,000 coins and they're talking about buying an additional 800,000 coins. I don't know how likely it is, and I don't know how to put that on a percentage chance that they actually do it. But there is a percentage chance that they actually do it. And if they have to buy another 800,000 coins of Bitcoin, odds are they're really going to drive the market up. The other reason they're going to drive the market up is I think they would want to drive it up because each time that market goes higher, it gives more credibility to Bitcoin. And if the Federal Reserve is putting that on their balance sheet as part of their reserves, they're going to want to give more credence to it. So they're going to want to drive the price higher and they're going to want to have it sustain itself and potentially not have the big corrections that we've seen in the past. I still expect it to be pretty volatile. I'm not saying it won't be volatile because they're going to support it. But what I am saying is if they make it part of the reserves, they got a lot of coins they've said they want to buy. It's hard to imagine the market will fall going into that. Maybe enough places have bought ahead of it, hoping that they do, but I still think we have a lot of room to go, and I think it's a really interesting product. Now, I wish I had more of it. Unfortunately, like everybody else, I have way too little, so it's more of just fun and interesting to watch. And I'm really curious to see how it changes our lives because the people who seem to understand blockchain talk about it revolutionizing it the same way they talk about AI. So we have all of these things going on right now that I think the changes that we might see over the next 5 to 10 years could be incredible. And part of the reason why the equities seem to be a little bit overvalued. I'm guessing it'll all make sense as time goes by and we see where the earnings are and what the companies are actually able to do with these new technologies. When I was listening to Michael Saylor talk about what he's doing with Bitcoin and the way he's using his stock, even his explanation of being able to take money up front to use to sell bonds was so above my understanding. But what I did understand is essentially he's selling more stock to be able to buy more Bitcoin because he's just that big of a believer. Really interesting. I'm not an investor in MicroStrategies. nor am I looking to be an investor in it. But it's pretty interesting what he's been able to do. And it makes me wonder if at some point do companies like Apple or Meta or Google start putting Bitcoin on their balance sheets instead of some of the cash that they have invested in high yielding money markets or something else? Or do they buy Tether that's paying a yield or something else that they find to be a better option to do with some of their cash as they continue to watch MicroStrategies do it, and potentially the follow up to watch our government do it as well, giving it the more credibility to make them feel more comfortable to put some of it on their balance sheets. I'd be curious what you guys think about that. Really, I would. I know there's some people that think that Bitcoin is just some Ponzi scheme that eventually it's going to go back to zero when people realize it. Maybe it does. I'm not arguing one side or the other. Well, I guess I am to some degree. I'm telling you what I think. But I think that the other argument has some valid points. But I do think the higher it goes, the more credibility it gets. And I don't see it as a tulip bulb craze. I understand that you can't touch it and feel it and see it, and there's no use case for what it is other than if we agree on a price, that's all it is. And maybe there'll be a use case eventually. And at least with gold and silver and things of that nature, there is an actual use case. So I understand the difficulty of understanding it. I just think it's such an interesting product. It's hard for me to not see it continue. And I just want to be around long enough to see how it plays out because it's really exciting. I also hope that all of you are making new highs in your portfolios as the stock market continues higher. I'm really interested. It's kind of amazing to me to see the housing market here in Las Vegas pick up a bit. I've seen more inventory come to the market. Prices seem to be holding. I'm, as I mentioned earlier, very shocked to see business picking up this time of year because typically during the holidays, people get distracted with the holidays and they're not really looking for properties. So I would have expected a big drawdown in prices, a slowdown in volume that we're doing at the mortgage company, but it just hasn't been that way. And we've actually picked up. And like I said earlier, I hadn't had a chance to do a video because I've been busier at work, which is great and not great at the same time. I like being busy and I also like not being busy, which is kind of an interesting position to be in. Either way, I think real estate seems to be holding up just fine, even with the additional inventory. I think that we'll see some specific areas, like I think Florida could have a nice pullback. I've lost touch a bit. I haven't been able to pay attention, but I kind of want to watch the prices there to see if they have as big a correction as I could see them having. The insurance issue is a real issue there. A lot of companies are pulling out, making it very difficult to get properties insured. The HOA problems are monstrous problems in specific high rises. I know some of them are getting hit with absurdly high special assessments, especially in terms of percentage of the value of the condos. And then you add on to that just the floods and the weather and everything else all happening at the same time. I could see a real correction in some of Florida and potentially some other areas. Whereas California seems to be chugging along just like they always do. I mean, LA just seems to not really have retracements. I think San Francisco has had a bit of a pullback, but they have some other things going on that have made people actually move out a bit. And I think that's caught itself and probably getting to the point where people are moving back in again. And then you come to Las Vegas, where we're having the most amount of people move month over month into Las Vegas and not enough inventory. I don't see what changes that, even with the pickup in some inventory. So I think we continue to drift a little bit higher. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Tell me your thoughts on real estate. I know some people see a big correction coming. I don't really see it, but I wouldn't be shocked either. And if we do, I don't see it being 2008. We don't have the same type of banking crises going on, and we don't have the same type of loans that people are just going to walk away. Even if there was a correction, a lot of people are in it from a lot lower already and have low interest rates that kind of pin them to the properties they're in. So that's my takes on it. Anyway, again, I hope your portfolios are making new highs. I've been very fortunate with the 4 companies I picked in the trading account: Boeing, Amazon, Google, and Meta, right? Boeing, Google, Amazon, and Meta have all had really good week or so, and that's really what I focused on. Um, so hopefully it just continues. It's very hard for me not to lighten up on, like, Meta had a really big run. It's very hard for me not to sell a tiny bit of it in the hopes to be able to buy it back if it goes back down to 550. But I am really trusting the process of, I think these are good companies that are priced fairly, that should outperform the market. So I guess we'll see as the years progress, and where things stand. And I'll keep you abreast of if I make any change in the account. Have a great Wednesday. Hopefully, I have time to do another video either tomorrow or Friday. I will try to do the Saturday video as well as a Sunday live. I hope you guys can make the live. I do enjoy that platform. I think it's fun to be able to interact where I can answer some questions for you guys that you might have. Anyway, have a great day, and I'm sure I'll talk to you guys soon.